What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Iron Purpose Podcast. Could not be more excited for the episode that I have in store for you today. This is, I think, the longest conversation that I've had with a fellow type 1 diabetic, other than some nurses. It was super cool being able to pick her brain and be able to relate with her in many ways, including the beginning before we started recording. She said she wanted to make sure she had enough snacks and stuff ready to go just in case her blood sugar went low, and I can completely relate because as I sit here in this desk, there is Nutrigrain bars and different things of candy just in case my blood sugar goes low. Super cool, super relatable for myself, and I think a lot of people will be able to learn from her story and the journey that she's had with overcoming this adversity in her life and not letting it get the best of her, taking control of it. And we talk about that, becoming the pilot of her own life in this adventure of type 1 diabetes. Morgan Bathke, thank you for coming on. People, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Stay sharp, everybody. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Iron Purpose Podcast. I am extremely excited for this one. I think I say that for every one of them, but this is going to be a first. I've never had another diabetic on. Before we get into that, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. I'm very much looking forward to this with your life story, with things we could talk about as far as diabetes goes. Morgan Bathke, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Good. No, I'm so excited to be on, and I'm pumped to be the first diabetic you've had on the podcast. I feel very special. So,
Yes. So what you been up to lately? I know you just finished moving. You're up here for good now, or the move is complete, I should say.
yes. Yeah, my husband and I just moved to the Nisswa area. We were living in St. Louis Park, down in the cities, and we could not wait to, get back to some small town living. So, we just officially moved in off screen. You can't see it, but I'm drowning in boxes and have a lot to do to make this place feel like home still. But yeah, we're super pumped and can't wait to make some friends and get involved with the community, of course.
And just in time too. It just really started to get nice out right up in the Brainerd Lakes area. Like right around this time, it's like that's when everybody starts coming up. It's the place to be. Minnesota's place to be. So we're stoked to have you here. What are you most excited for about being up in the Brainerd Lakes area? Because you visited quite a bit in the past, right?
Yeah, so my family, I kind of grew up coming to this area for vacation. I grew up in the Grand Rapids area, so it used to be coming south.
Sure.
But yeah, we would always come here, probably once a year around Memorial Weekend, celebrate and have kind of like a family reunion and just like totally fell in love with the area. So when my husband and I were talking about moving out of the cities and moving to a small town, this was kind of the obvious place for us to land. So we're pumped to get the opportunity to put down some roots here for sure.
It's funny that you said pumped because I was just thinking of when I met you. We were at the gym. I was a takedown gym, and I saw you working out, and I noticed this thing on your arm. And I was like, that looks like an Omnipod, a pump, or a Dexcom, or it was both probably. I think you had one on each arm.
Yeah, probably both.
And I was just like, another one of me. And so I had to just go introduce myself and just pick your brain on diabetes a little bit. And then I said, hey, I got a podcast. You want to come on someday? I think that was a few months ago, but it's interesting how something so small like that is so noticeable. Like, oh, she's got a pump, and then it just sparks a conversation and potentially a friendship. So it's really neat how we were able to cross paths like that, and hopefully be able to share our stories together and make this episode something that a lot of people can relate to. Because I'd reached out. I think it's been a couple weeks now, but one of my friends one of my Facebook friends was recently pregnant, and she said she really struggled with gestational diabetes, and it was something that she was embarrassed of, and like, why am I diabetic? I'm not out of shape and all this stuff. And it's a really difficult thing to have to navigate. And she's like, thank God I'm done with that. Cause there was a lot of embarrassment behind it. And that really was like, okay, I really want to pick somebody else's brain who is diabetic, who also has been through this like I have, and say, maybe it's not something to be embarrassed about. I think maybe there could be other people out there who are diabetic who kind of have similar thoughts, and maybe they try to hide their pump. They don't wear it on their sleeve like you did the one day. And obviously you got to move it around a little bit. Mine's on my abdomen right now, but you get the point. But it's really neat how we're able to just kind of able to cross paths like that, and hopefully
inspire somebody else to not be ashamed of diabetes or whatever that situation looks like in their life, ashamed of or embarrassed of wherever they are, whatever they're dealing with.
Absolutely. I think how you and I met is such an authentic thing to the type 1 diabetes experience and, just diabetes in general for that matter. When you see someone, it's like when you see a diabetic in the wild, I feel like that's what a lot of me and my friends with also terrible pancreases call it. But when you like see someone with an insulin pump on, I know, right? But when you see someone with an insulin pump on or a Dexcom, like you immediately have a bond because it's such a
Mm,
unique experience. It has its highs and lows, both like figuratively and blood sugar wise. But you
yeah.
immediately have like a bond with a person. And it also feels really validating to see someone out there who, you know, if you didn't see their Dexcom or their insulin pump on their body, you probably assume is living a totally normal life, but you kind of get a little peek into probably what their journey has been like. But it just feels validating to see someone at the gym crushing it and to have that link and to
Mm,
be like, okay, because that person seems okay, I'm okay and I can keep kind of going. So I love encountering diabetics in the wild. It is one of my favorite things. I have been known to run up to a girl in the bar bathroom and be like, "Oh, like your arm." So I think it's a really unique thing about the awesome community that we find ourselves in because of our terrible pancreases. But it's a super cool bond, and I love it because it's immediate friendships whenever you see someone wearing a diabetes device.
And even though everybody's story may be different, there is still relatable pieces to it. And like you said, being in the gym, just crushing it, like knowing you're literally wearing adversity on you and it's visible that you have a pump. So it's like, and I just did an episode yesterday and I just put it out today, my brother and I, on adversity. So it's just very fresh in my mind, but you're literally wearing that adversity on your sleeve. And it's like, this is something that could really get me down. This is something that could make me depressed and not want to come
Mm-hmm.
out and about and go to the gym and stuff. But when you're like, when it's visible and you're like throwing weights around and just being just being a beast, like this super cool and super inspiring. And it's funny, when we were talking, like your husband came out and walked up and he saw my pump too, and he's like, "Ha, diabuddies," and that's something that I I've used that now with several people. Like there was a kid at the gym who was in high school, and I was like, "Is that a pump?" He's like, "Yeah," and I showed him mine. I was like, "Diabuddies," and everybody just gets a kick out of that. So I'm thankful for him. Shout out him for that. That's Tim, right? Tim is your husband.
Ben,
Ben.
like,
Okay, Ben.
yeah,
Yes.
Ben, you
Shout
got
out
it.
Ben.
Ben, Tim, whatever it is. He responds to really anything. Hey, you, whatever you
Same.
need. But yeah, no,
uh,
he's been such an awesome support because I live and work in diabetes, so it's kind of my world, but he has like adopted the lingo. He's super used to me like running up to people or getting pulled aside in public because someone saw my CGM or my insulin pump or I saw theirs. So he's so used to it at this point, but he also kind of understands how important that connection is for me and often how important that connection is for the other person too that I'm talking to just feel
mm,
like I see you, I've got you, like you're not alone in this. And even if we're just poking fun, I mean, I like to joke about it a lot, but it's a heavy diagnosis. But
mm,
anything that I think like we can do to support other people and make the experience feel a little bit lighter, it gives us all endurance. Like it helps me get through my day and all of the endless decisions that come along with living with type 1 diabetes, and it often helps the other person too. So yeah, I love finding diabetics in the wild, creating that amazing connection right off the bat. And so, not surprised, here we are like a year later, after a similar interaction. But some of my really close friends came from an initial, like, diabuddy interaction at a gym or you name it.
I love that. Well, you kind of touched on the community of diabetics and stuff that you kind of work with and kind of experience life together with. This is time now. I'm kind of just gonna give you the mic, let you just take the floor and kind of share your experience. You can go, like I said, as far back as you want to kind of who you are today with maybe the struggles or the different things that you went through with diabetes and kind of where it brought you. Um, so with that, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh man, I guess I'll start, like when I was diagnosed, I feel like that's kind of the beginning for me. So, I grew up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Was a super active kid, was a gymnast, was in diving. Um, was really big into snowmobiling, being outside, water skiing, like just super active. It was a big part of like who I was. And then at 15 years old, I had this crazy diagnosis and I end up with type 1 diabetes. It was kind of a crazy
Me
story
too.
too. Yeah. Were you
I was 15
15?
as well. I was,
Oh,
yeah.
it's the worst. You're like freshman in high school. I'm gonna get my like permit. I'm gonna get some independence. Wham! No, you have type 1 diabetes, and now your parents are hovering over you, and it's like a whole thing. But yeah, it was a big joke too because my best friend growing up was type 1, so she was diagnosed when she was 4 years
Oh
old.
wow.
And you know the type of best friends that you say their names together. It's like, oh, it's always Hannah and Morgan. It's never just Morgan or just Hannah. It's Hannah and Morgan, Morgan and Hannah. And so we were like thick as thieves. And when I was 15 years old, started kind of showing symptoms. I was super super thirsty. Was going to the bathroom a lot. Was losing weight really quickly. Complaining about my eyesight. And Hannah mentioned to her mom that I was just chugging water at school. And so her mom and her came over one day and they're like, let's just check your blood sugar. And ended up, my blood sugar was too high for the meter to read at the time. So we went
Mm-hmm.
into the ER and boom, got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So it was a crazy way to start out my freshman year of high school, and at the time felt like the absolute end of the world,
Mm.
and really felt like the most derailing thing when it came to my athletics, to living life like a normal teenager. I mean, even like dating and just thinking about like, all of the different baggage that I would have to bring into a relationship with this new disease that I'm dealing with. And, you're awkward, you're 15. Um, it was just a lot. And I think I struggled for a really long time with a lot of shame related to type 1. I didn't want to wear any devices. I didn't want anybody to know that I had it. Um, and so the teenage years were tough for sure. Um, and another part of my story that was like really, really key to everything was I had the opportunity to dive on the swimming and diving team for the University of Minnesota. So I was a diver
Oh.
on the team. Uh, really struggled my freshman year of college because of my blood sugars. A lot of people do when they go from high school to that first year of college. A lot of people's A1Cs, which is a measure of how in control your blood sugars are, rise a lot during that year. And mine were no exception. So I
Mm.
struggled a lot with my athletics. I struggled a lot with just remaining healthy. And eventually was told by my endocrinologist that it's a non-negotiable. You need to get on an insulin pump and you need to get on a continuous glucose monitor. So I didn't want to do that at all. I didn't want anything on me. I didn't want anybody to know that I had diabetes because there was so much kind of shame and embarrassment around it, like something was wrong with me.
Mm.
But I was really in a place where to be safe while diving, I needed to be on a CGM and an insulin pump. So I begrudgingly got them and it absolutely changed my life. It opened my eyes to like what was going on inside my body and kind of what a poor job I had been doing with taking care of my body. And I hadn't realized it because I hadn't had this window into what was going on inside my body and how to treat it more kindly. Um, and that really kind of sparked
Mm.
this like passion in me for kind of working in the diabetes space. So after college, I pursued a career in medical device sales, ended up getting a job at Dexcom, which has been my dream job because it was the device that really changed my life. And so now I literally live, breathe, and work diabetes, and it is so much fun. Um, but the biggest thing that's been, a game changer for me in this whole journey has been just like surrounding myself with community, because that shame can be, and then embarrassment can be really, really intense when you don't have it. But that's kind of my story. I feel like I rambled on for a long time, but it's crazy to even think about how much this like diagnosis has shaped me. But
Mm.
I honestly wouldn't change it for the world.
Had you thought, going from high school to college, did you have other career goals in mind, and then being diabetic kind of shifted that? And if so, do you mind sharing?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. Okay. My favorite movie of all time is Top Gun. My dad is a pilot. And
Oh,
so I
sweet.
always grew up wanting to be like my dad, and I wanted to be a pilot so bad. I actually did like a discovery flight when I was younger and got to like fly a little plane. And that like for as long as I can remember was what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a pilot. But at least when I was diagnosed, you couldn't get cleared by the FAA to be able to fly commercially if you had a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. So,
Mm,
yeah, it totally changed what I wanted to do when I grew up. And the really cool thing now is that because of the diabetes technology that exists and the devices that you and I wear, people can totally be commercial pilots with type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, which is really amazing. But at the time, it just didn't seem like something that was possible.
mm,
So plans definitely shifted, but the way I see it now, it was God's plan for me to really just find my calling, because this has been something that gives me so much energy. And I can't say that I would have experienced the same journey had I been able to, live my maverick dream and be a pilot.
I love that. Isn't
Yeah.
it crazy how life works sometimes? You think you have something planned to where you want to go, like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go fly planes. And God goes, nah, I mean, that's really cool. Maybe someday, but right now I want you
Yeah.
over here because there's people that need you. Like, it's so
It's so
cool.
true. Yeah, that's been like a thread through my life. When I was diagnosed at 15, that was the perfect excuse for me to turn away from my faith and was like, if
Mm,
I'm 15, I'm angsty. If there was a God up there, he wouldn't have done this to me. Like he wouldn't have made my
yeah.
pancreas walk out on me. Um, and that was like a really big barrier for me for a really long time until I met my husband. He has a really incredibly strong faith. And when we were dating, he made it very clear that he was going to marry a girl who had faith at like the center of her being too. I was like, oh. So he kind of brought me back around to getting, going to church. And I'm so thankful for it now, because
Mm,
getting more in touch with my faith allowed me to see the thread that God had kind of weaved through my life from diagnosis to now. And I mean, how
yeah.
crazy. If I hadn't have had this diagnosis, I wouldn't have become the person I am. I wouldn't be working in a career that I'm so passionate about. And I wouldn't feel so fulfilled. So when I say I wouldn't change it for the world, I really wouldn't. But it's crazy how something that can turn you away from your faith can also be the thing that brings you back and makes you realize how God's hand is in everything. So that's been
Mm.
one of the coolest things since my diagnosis at 15 too, is to look back and see kind of the evolution of my own mindset and my relationship with God, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. When did you, if you don't mind me asking, when did you meet your husband? Was it in school or have you known him for quite a long time?
Yeah, we met in school. We met as seniors in college. And yeah, we met on LinkedIn, like total corn dogs in business school. Um, I had an internship that he also applied for, and we ended up like he reached out to me on LinkedIn to say, "Oh, I'd love to hear about your internship experience." Met up, thought he was kind of cute. He thought I was kind of cute, and the rest is history. So that's, forget Tinder,
Oh,
forget
man.
Hinge. LinkedIn is where it's at, people.
That's where it's at, kids. You heard it here.
Don't do that. Do
So,
not turn LinkedIn into a dating site. Don't do it.
that's funny. So, so also being diabetic led you down a path to where you met him as well. Maybe you might have not met him had you gone down the different path of aviation or whatever else you wanted for your life. So it's crazy too how the little things like that you just kind of think of. Oh man, yeah, maybe I wouldn't be married to who I am right now had I not been diagnosed as a diabetic. I wouldn't have had
Well,
that shift in mentality and
here's the crazy
yeah,
thing
let's hear
about
it.
it. The internship that we both applied for was for a diabetes company. So it just kind of came full circle. Like I said, it's truly this red thread that God has woven through my life, and it brought me my career, it brought me like my passion, it brought me my partner, it's been it's been a crazy ride, but I wouldn't change it. It's awesome.
Mm, yeah, that's awesome. I can think of too, like growing up where blood sugars really affected my my performance in basketball and soccer, because those
Yeah.
are the sports that I got to play in. And you were talking about it briefly, and I remember a story when I was on the sidelines and we were about to getting ready to play a game, and I had a bag of licorice, and I'm just eating it real quick because my blood sugar's low, and my coach is looking at me like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you eating a bunch of candy? We're about to play, dude. You're gonna get
Yeah.
cramps, all this other stuff." And I'm just like, "My blood sugar's low," trying to shove my face with licorice. Oh,
Dude,
crazy
I
times.
mean, some of those universal experiences. My coach in college, he I remember like my one of my first couple days on the pool deck, and I'm rolling with like a 5 pound bag of Starbursts. He's like, "Why are you always eating so many Starbursts?" And I was explaining to him like, I have diabetes. It's so that I don't, just keel off the diving board at some random time during practice. It's very important that I'm scarfing down Starburst at all times during practice. Trust me. And my teammates, of course, loved that too because it meant that there was always Starburst like stashed somewhere on the pool deck. But it was really inconvenient when I would find out that they had gotten into my stash and my blood sugar would be low and then I wouldn't have any Starbursts. So, you
It's
know,
game on at that point. Somebody's gonna die.
I know. I'm like, you guys, I really need, like, come on.
Even my
What do
wife,
you
there'll
do?
be times because my go to snack when it comes to my blood sugar is Skittles. I'll just keep a bag of Skittles in my bag that I walk around with, and sometimes I'll be taking them out and I'll like take a handful, and she'll hold their hand out like with a question mark. Can I have some, or do you need those? I'm like, okay, yeah, you can have a few. That's all right.
For sure, for sure. It's nice though too when you're like with someone who kind of they understand why you're grabbing for that snack and they're like, I don't want to like inconvenience you, but is it okay? Can I have like they have that extra level of like, I know you need it, but I still want your snacks. So can I have some? I
Yeah.
appreciate like the additional level of care they take, but it is always hilarious to relinquish my snacks.
Yes, 100%. That's funny. Yeah, and
So
it's
Skittles are your
crazy that
go-to?
yeah. While we're there, what's your go to?
Oh my gosh, I literally have them right here. I don't know if you guys ever heard of these sour rings. You can get them at Whole
No.
Foods. They are insanely delicious, and that is a problem. In 4 pieces, there's 26 grams of carbohydrates, so they definitely get the job done.
Oof.
But they're
Yeah.
also way too good to have around because you'll want to eat them when you don't have a low as well. But they are the best.
Will you eat those like in the middle of the night too, or you have something different?
Oh, the middle of the night one is always the worst. I just keep like a bunch of fruit snacks just chucked in my drawer by my bedside table. So that's usually a go-to, or like a juice box. But
Fair. Yeah, because there's times where I Nutrigrain bars are one that that's another go to just because it's like it's the middle of the night. I don't want to eat a bunch of Skittles right now because then you wake
oh,
up and your mouth tastes like it's like bleh. Yeah.
it's the
So
worst.
that's one. Have you? I guess have you, if you're allowed to share, like, have you experienced or have you had other people that you've worked with experience like if they're trying to be better with like nutritional intake and stuff, and that's something I'm really trying to get after it now. We just my wife and I had a baby March 3rd, and so everybody's bringing in all these treats and everything, and like
Oh,
which is awesome, but I'm eating literally everything. And so something that I'm trying to do better now is just my nutritional intake. Have you noticed if there's a better snack for that? Like, okay, maybe you should stay away from these, or maybe you should, maybe it's better to have like just a little candies because there's not as much, it's not a bigger thing. You guys seen anybody struggle with that or have any advice or anybody that may be going through that?
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. And I'll preface it by saying, I am not a healthcare professional, so this is not medical advice. This is just like what I've experienced myself and like what I've kind of heard in the diabetes community. But when it comes to treating a low blood sugar, the simpler the carbohydrate, typically the better when it comes to getting that blood sugar up really quickly. So that's why, you hear people talk about treating with like a juice box or some type of hard candy, not chocolate, because that's a little bit more complex. You've got some fats in there, but anything that you can do to gravitate towards those like simple sugars and simple carbohydrates are going to raise your blood sugar really quickly. If you're trying to gravitate away from candy, fruit can be really, really effective as well, or dried
Hmm.
fruit. I think when it comes to treating a low, the best thing that you can do is focus on something that you can, realistically manage how much you're eating of it. Because I'm sure you've experienced this, Bailey, but sometimes when you're low and you're feeling those symptoms of like you're hungry, you're lethargic, you're weak, it's easy to turn one handful of Skittles into two. And then your blood sugar is really high later and you've overshot that correction, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So so when you're treating lows, it's always a good idea to maybe gravitate towards things that are prepackaged, like a package of fruit snacks that's a set amount of carbohydrates, so that you can kind of control and stay off that diabetes roller coaster of going from a low to a high blood sugar, back down to a low blood sugar, and so on. Um, and then outside of treating lows, I find that as a very simple rule of thumb for myself, the less ingredients on the ingredient label, typically the more predictable my blood sugars are going to be after eating it. So
Mm.
it's almost no different from anybody else who's trying to eat healthy, but the simpler the ingredients, the less processed ingredients, or um, the less different carbohydrates and stuff in it, typically just the more predictable. So personally, I tend to eat a pretty simple diet of a lot of protein, because I find that really helps with balancing my blood sugars. A lot of red meat, a lot of fish and eggs, and then a lot of simple fruits and vegetables. I definitely will gravitate towards some of those like energy bars, protein bars, that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
typically for me, as a rule of thumb, my blood sugars just tend to be more predictable when I know exactly what I'm eating. And that comes from short ingredient lists on the back of boxes of food rather than long ones.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for sharing that. And because there's times too where like my blood sugar is all over the place, and you're trying to get caught up, and because you eat too much, and then you try to overcorrect it, and then it goes back down again. And you're like, okay, I just gotta, instead of just being lost in this land of limbo, maybe let's shorten it up a little bit so I'm aware of what's going in there. Because you touched on it, and yeah, you're exactly right. There's times where I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my phone is beeping at me. Because I got both of them, the phone and the right now
Yep.
they're not. I don't have them joined yet, but so my Omnipod is freaking out at me, and my phone's freaking out at me, and like I'll eat something, and they're still beeping, like, "Come on, man, you gotta eat." And I'm like, I am like, calm
Yep.
down. And then I feel like a vampire searching for blood, like with my fridge open, just okay, I'm gonna eat this and that and that, and like okay, it's got to be good now. And then you see the double arrows going up, and you're just like,
Yep.
oh no, here we go. And
I've
so it
been there
begins.
on the kitchen floor with a like spoon and a thing of ice cream. It's just sometimes the low overtakes you. And of course, like you want to do what you can to try to be as consistent as possible, but like sometimes that ice cream just calls your name and your blood sugar ends up being too high. And none of us are perfect. And it's just kind of the nature of the beast from time to time. So I think it's important to also give yourself some grace, because
Mm.
we are literally making decisions and doing the job of an organ that's supposed to be flying on autopilot, and nobody gave us an instruction manual, so we're just doing our best. And so sometimes you're going to nail treating the low and sometimes you're not, and it's okay.
Wow, that's such a good point. And it all goes back to your Maverick theme. All right, Morgan, you're a pilot now. Go ahead. You are a pilot. You're a pilot of diabetes in its own way. Right into the danger
Oh my
zone.
gosh, I ended up being a pilot after all.
Let's go.
I love it.
Uh,
Call sign,
yeah.
my call sign would be like sweet stuff. It's a terrible joke.
Yes. I love that. With yeah, and because when I was first diagnosed, I was 15, and kind of a similar story. My mom, I walked into her bathroom one day because I wasn't feeling good, and she's like, "Oh man, like I can see your ribs. Like you lost a lot of weight.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly drinking. I felt like I was constantly having to go to the bathroom, and it was just like it almost seemed like it was simultaneous sometimes. Like I was drinking it, and it was just whoop coming right back out, and I
Yeah.
was just like, what is going on? And trying to perform in sports and stuff, and my attitude, I was very irritable when my highs were high, and I was like
Yeah.
not able to perform in school and sports and stuff. I'd be like shaky, like okay, what is going on? And that the analogy of somebody's trying to teach you something, or you're getting thrown into a situation and there's no manual for it. You're just kind of like, okay, now we got to just figure this out. It was the day after Christmas that I was diagnosed. I
Mm.
um I shot. I'm a big hunter, so I ended up shooting a deer, and it was in my grandpa's backyard. So my dad was right there with me, watched me shoot it. And it would have been the biggest buck that I've ever shot, and so I was shot it, and then I was like, okay, cool. And I turned around and went right back and laid back down on the couch. And my dad is just like, what? what is going on? And excuse me. So we went to track this deer, and we're going through the woods and stuff, and I would get caught up to my dad and my brother, and then I'd lay down in the woods, and they would go keep going, and I'd go and get caught back up to them, and I'd lay down again just to just like rest, and that was kind of like the final point for my dad. Like, okay, something's up, and then we ended up going to the hospital, and we went to the doctor actually, just the urgent care, and they're like, yeah, same story. It's not even showing on our meter how high your blood sugar is. It's you got to go to the hospital down to Children's right away. So we went and packed up our stuff. And my dad was like, "Are you ready to go on a journey? It's going to be a lifelong journey." And at the time, I was kind of freaking out. Didn't really know how am I supposed to do this? And got there, and we finally got my blood sugar back down. And they're showing us in the different classes and stuff about this is how you take a shot, and this is how this is how you're going to monitor your blood sugar. Here's a little book that you got. It was like a Calorie King
Oh,
one, but it had all
the
the
Calorie King book. That's part of all of our diabetes trauma is the Calorie King book. It's burned into
yes.
our mind.
Yeah, so like going to McDonald's or something, going, okay, this is okay. I got the burger, I got the fries, the diet. Okay, no, we're okay there. And then I was like, I'm screwed. I can't do this. And we go to my
Yeah.
grandma's. Like I said, it was a week after Christmas, and around New Year's, like my extended family all gets together on my mom's side, and my grandma's cousins, aunts, uncles, and my grandma makes like flapjacks, hash browns, just you name it, carb kingdom right there. And
Yep.
I remember like crying in the kitchen with my mom and my dad as they're trying to look through the book, like, where's Flapjack at? I don't know how do and just kind of winging it. And, it's one of those things where you could either let it break you down or you can rise from it, kind of back to the adversity thing. And just over time, you start to figure out like, okay, there's roughly this amount of carbs in this food, and you can kind of look at your plate, and I'm sure you become obviously a pro at it as well, where you don't have to look up in the Calorie King book. We could all burn those probably now, but it just kind of comes with time and just becomes part of who you are. And I was the same way. I didn't want to wear a pump. I didn't wear a pump for probably 3 years until college as well.
Yeah.
I just used first it was the syringes, and then I switched to like those pens that you click, and was
Yeah.
using those. And I remember being at a Twins game with one of my friends, and I was sitting in the stands trying to hold everything. Like, here, can you hold my plate so I could figure out my blood sugar, and then lift up my shirt and stab myself? And you get those looks from people like, can you not do that here? Like, can you go somewhere else?
Oh,
Like, why are you bleeding? Like, and just a young kid like going into college, and that was kind of the decision where it's like, okay, I'm gonna get on a pump. And then I didn't get on a CGM until like 3 years ago, and life changing. Like you said,
yeah.
it's just the A1C has been so much better, and it kind of enables you to put it back on autopilot after all these years of trying to figure out how to fly this thing called diabetes, type 1 diabetes. You have the opportunity to kind of put it back on autopilot with the technology that we have nowadays, which is super super cool and far beyond anything I ever thought it was going to be like. And my dad's aunts and uncles, there's still a couple of them, my great aunts and uncles, who are a little bit older now, they were also diagnosed at a young age. And hearing stories from them, like when they wanted to eat something, they had to get out the needle, they had to boil it to, disinfect it and everything. And hearing it from their stories, and they also had a sibling who was diabetic, and he didn't do anything, didn't monitor at all. He ate whatever he wanted to whenever he wanted, and he didn't listen to anybody. And he ended up passing away in his like mid 40s. And I never knew
Yeah.
him, but it's like, they're in their 80s now, or pretty dang near close to it, and he passed away when he was in mid 40s. So it's like, do I let this control me, or do I take control of it? And it's been kind of the story ever since. And obviously, it's a never ever going battle. It's going to be something we're dealing with until probably the day we die, unless something crazy comes out or our pancreas just decide to just wake up one day. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Hello.
No, I
You
mean,
up
it
yet?
really is. And I feel like there's so much there about like what you just talked about. I mean, first and foremost, I think you can, like, diabetes it's the ultimate story of like two sides to the same coin. Because, you talk about not only your experience when you were getting diagnosed, but your family's experience and what that was like. And, you can like find a lot of strength in it and you can find a lot of despair in it, and both can be true at the same time, and that's okay. Your family can in one way like build you up in such amazing ways and be there to support you and be like going through the calorie king thing to help you find out what the carb count is. And the pressure of not wanting to inconvenience them
Mm,
or have the burden also be placed on them can cause us um to feel really negatively as well. So even though your family's so supportive, I think a lot of us also feel like this is my burden. I don't want other people to have to also shoulder this, so I'll like hide it away. And so like your family can be both an amazing support for you and unintentionally it can be draining to show up for our loved ones, and navigate it for them as well. And there's also there's so much to being a loved one, supporting someone who has diabetes too. That's something that I've learned so much throughout the years, as like I've had parents call me, you know, to like through networks to find out like, is my kid still gonna be able to do sports and how do I support them. I've learned that like there's such an impact as far as, you know, what our families go through and finding out how to love us and support us best, at the same time that we're figuring out how to navigate it and also like convince our families that we're fine, we're okay, we can handle this. um and then on top of that, like you can have this amazing strength. Like I know you said something about like we're literally wearing adversity and that can be a badge of honor. Like despite all this, I'm crushing it. And it can also be the worst. And it can be so, you can have this like embarrassment because of a whole host of things, like having something on you that labels you as having something wrong with you.
mm,
You can have embarrassment related to, I think there's such a stigma out there related to diabetes, whether it's type 1, type 2, gestational. There's a lot of stigma that we deal with on a daily basis, and so do people with type 2 diabetes, and so do people with gestational diabetes. But I think it's just like this idea that you can be blessed and be bummed about this situation, and you don't need to go from a place of like being bummed to just like being like, I've got this, I can handle this, I'm strong because of this all the time. It's okay to waver back and forth, and it's okay for your
mm.
family members to do the same, and it's okay to allow space to be strong and also allow yourself space to be like, okay, today this sucks, I hate this, and tomorrow I'm gonna like jump out of bed with a new attitude. But I can also honor the fact that like I've got this thing that I've got to deal with for my entire life, and it's a lot.
Yes, that's that's I really love. I'm gonna go back and watch this again probably a couple times, but I really love what you said. How like you can overcome it and just be this beast of a person. Like I got this. This isn't ain't nothing but a thing. And then the very next day you can just say, you know what, I'm okay to just sit here and hate this for a little bit. Like
Yeah.
it's because it is an unfortunate thing that happened to me, and maybe sometimes I myself can be a very positive person, and sometimes I just push through it. And I think being like realistic and positive can also, I mean, they can coexist at the same time, and that is proof of it. I think of just being like, you know what, yeah, I am a positive person, but this is really affecting me in a way right now. I'm not going to let it continue to affect me. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Woe is me." I'm a loser because I have this. It's more of like I'm frustrated with this. I'm going to
Hmm.
say that I hate it, and then I'm going to move on to the next day because it's something I got to continue to battle with. And I think that's awesome. I think it can apply to a lot of different areas of our lives. You kind of touched
Yeah.
on how different family members or parents of kids that you may be working with, like saying, are they going to be able to do sports? Are they going to be able to continue to do these things? You kind of touched on when you were diving, where there was kind of that moment of where you said, I'm going to wear the CGM because it's going to benefit me in my my diving career or in my diving stuff. Was there a specific moment where you were like sitting there and you had to make that decision where you maybe didn't want to, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to let this define me anymore in a negative way. I'm going to take charge? Or was this always kind of something that you had thought when you were since you were 15 of, all right, I'm just going to own this. It's not going to own me, if that makes sense.
Oof. Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, no, like I was not always like that. I'm not ashamed to admit I wallowed in it for a good long time. After my diagnosis, I walked around for a really long time being like, why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? What, like how with all the odds, how did lightning strike me? This makes no sense. I was mad at the world. I was mad at God. And
That's right.
I wasn't a super fun, positive person, honestly. What changed was I eventually found community, like in college, and I found a community of people that could support me. So, I was really struggling. My A1C was like in the tens when I was in
Mm.
college, and um, my endocrinologist told me that I needed to quit diving or shape up, essentially, which was tough. I will I
Mm.
and so I said, like, okay, I hear you. I need some support, and I need you to hear me out with what I've been trying. And that's where she was like, okay, yeah, it's time for a continuous glucose monitor, it's time for an insulin pump. But also she recommended that I try and find some other people to connect with, who also were like living a similar journey as me. So I found the College Diabetes Network at the University of Minnesota. It's actually a nationwide thing, and it exists
Wow.
on a lot of college campuses. And if there's not one on your college campus, you can actually reach out to the organization and see about starting a chapter on your campus, which was awesome. I will admit, 9 times out of 10, we just showed up to this one place on a Wednesday and like complained about diabetes and played like a game of diabetes never have I ever. Like, never have I ever gone, 3 weeks without changing my lancet in my finger poker. It's like, oh yeah, everybody's done that. But like it just became this place that I could be so honest about like what I was going through, and other people heard me, and we could laugh about it, and we could be mad about it, and
Mm.
we could get involved with supporting other people who are walking through similar things. So we like would have a night where a lot of parents with like young children with diabetes could come and hear people talk about the latest research in diabetes, hear people present on the different devices or different support group like resources. And I got so much out of that. And that's what energized me to not only find strength in my diagnosis, but also to realize that it went so far beyond me. And if I could find strength in my diagnosis, that would allow other people to find strength in theirs. And that's how you make it through. And that's how you stay positive, is figuring out how you can pour into others who are experiencing this. So I get a lot of energy out of that. Through my network, I've got a lot of people who will text me, like loved ones or family members or friends or acquaintances, who will say, hey, my sister's brother's youngest daughter just got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and they're freaking out. Can they call you? And my answer is always,
Mm.
of course. And so I have a lot of people who have come to me through that type of network, and it's been the most life-giving thing. And there are a lot of people who just need to hear that they've got this and they can do it, and I'm doing it so they can. um, and so I think that would be like my biggest piece of advice to anybody living with diabetes, whether it's type 1, type 2, gestational, is find a network, because that's where you're going to find endurance when the going gets tough, for sure.
Cue "We're All in This Together" by High School Musical.
Like, how do you do the dance? This
So...
together. Yes. Our crappy pancreases. Like, remix it. We're doing it.
We'll come up with something. Yeah, I'll come up with something, and we'll work on that.
I don't think anybody's gonna come watch Diabetes School Musical, but we'll
Maybe
see.
not, but it'd be fun. It'd be cool. That's that is so awesome. And that is honestly, kind of what I've been trying to do, like with this podcast, is iron sharpens iron. Like, we're all going through something, and we're all able to help somebody with our own experiences, our own perspectives, based off our own journeys or what we've learned. And you know, it's so valuable. I can only think of, myself being a parent now, and if my son were to go through something that I hadn't experienced, maybe he's got this new disease or something, and you're just like, I love this thing more than anything in my life. What do I
Yeah.
do? And for a parent to reach out to you, or that parent's friends, nieces, nephews, whatever that was,
Yeah.
like for that
Right?
person to reach out to you and be like, hey, what do I do? This is something that I'm really struggling with. And for them to see you, be this person that you are, and like somebody that goes to the gym and is able to accomplish all these different things and do it with a smile. And then, like, I'm sure that's just a big relief. Like, oh, okay. Like you said, if Morgan can do it, so can I. And, even for myself, like watching you at the gym, or just being on a podcast with you, having this energy, like if you can live your life in a way such as this, if you can continue to dive if you can, get through these difficult times in your life, through diabetes, it's like, maybe I can too. And
Mhm.
it's really cool. It's really powerful what you are able to do with community. So I appreciate you sharing
Thank
that.
you.
That's so cool.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate like you creating the space. I think this is like the kind of thing that it doesn't matter what people are walking through, people need. Like you need to feel like you can relate to someone. You need to feel like there's an opportunity for some type of connection. And I think sometimes you also need to hear that like even though we're sitting here smiling, laughing, talking about this like terrible thing that plagues us every day and kind of bleeds into all of the other things, it it can both be really really hard and really really beautiful, and it doesn't matter if it's diabetes or celiac or
Mm,
cancer or an eating disorder or depression or anxiety. Like we all have our stories, but there is value to be found in the story, there's motivation to be found in the story, and you can either decide to succumb to that story or you can rise above it. And I think that's the choice that we all have, regardless of what we're battling. Is, are you going to let this keep you down, or are you going to kind of find a way to turn this thing into a strength? And so I think it doesn't matter what it is. You've got to find a way to do that, because the alternative is so not fun.
mm,
And for me, like, I mean, what I'm grounded in so much is my faith and the energy of other people that I meet throughout the community who like need that example. But if you haven't found that, like, you've got to go find your thing, because I really believe that everybody can turn like that thing that's plaguing them into a strength if they approach it with the right mindset. But it's super hard, and a lot of times you need someone else to support you in doing that. So that's why I think it's so important that, like, when I see those diabuddies out in the world, I'm like, here's my number, let's connect. And I think that that's just something that we're supposed to do, whether it's as people living with diabetes, or whether it's Christians, or whether it's just a good person. Like, we need to create community, to support and lift other people up so that they can find the strength in their story. And I feel like sometimes we just need that reminder too.
absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. So this has been a very, very awesome episode. It's been so much fun being able to talk to you and pick your brain on diabetes. And I don't think this is the end. I think we'll probably have you on in the future again and again, just based off of different things that you're going through in your life and maybe your athletics or whatever it is. But I think a lot of people can learn from what was said, and I think you're just gonna continue to be a beautiful inspiration for other people. And maybe we could like work on writing a book someday or something like diabetics.
Write a book. It's gonna be called Calorie King is My Trauma.
Like Calorie Kings Anonymous. Like, hi, I'm Bailey. I'm diabetic.
Anybody with diabetes is gonna watch this and know exactly what we're talking about. That book was the worst.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have it anymore. My mom might have it at her house. I'll have to find it.
I think I
Put it on
burned
my
it.
shelf. You probably. If I didn't, maybe that's where I'm gonna go next with it. But
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much, Morgan, for your time. This has been an awesome experience, and like I said, we'll do it again in the future.
Great. I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
I'll
absolutely.
see you in the
Take care.
gym.
Woo! Let's go.